This will be unpopular. I understand that going in, but man, I hated seeing the reaction to Shedeur dropping like he did in the draft. That includes basically everybody. I mean, I appreciate Mel Kiper for like sticking up for not even so much Shedeur. I know that was more personal for Mel because of where he had him. But golly, people were just waiting to be so mean to the guy. And I'm not saying that he didn't bring some of it on himself. But I do feel like Shedeur brought out the worst in everybody. And if you are somebody within the Big 12, you're a Big 12 fan, this is somebody, you owe Shedeur an apology. You owe Shedeur an apology if you took part in all of that this weekend. If you were relishing in the son of the defensive coordinator of the Falcons prank calling Shedeur, you need to check yourself and apologize, okay? If you were liking tweet after tweet, I'll give you one or two, but if you liked more than one or two tweets making fun of Shedeur and what was happening to him in the draft, you owe the guy an apology, okay? Let me explain here. All right, so Shedeur fell all the way to the fifth round, pick 144 to the Browns, which really, I do have to admit, in terms of just NFL draft storylines that I've seen in my lifetime, I mean, that is up there. That is up there for being about as crazy as I have ever seen, for Shedeur to fall that far. It was shocking. A guy who, you know, at certain points in the pre-draft process, like some people had him as a potential number one overall pick. Mel Kiper has him as the number one quarterback in the draft. There were like 100 quarterbacks taken in the first round last year. And you're going to tell me a guy that like at worst was most people's QB3 goes to the fifth round. That was insane. And as shocking as it was, I do think the explanation is actually much more simple than most people made it out to be. Like way more simple. Guys, he did not have the top end talent that people thought would make him a first round pick, which is when you're going to take the guy in all likelihood to be your starter. He didn't have quite that level of talent. So now you're talking about, all right, we're going to have to bring him in to be a backup in some form or fashion, at least for the first part of his career. And the last thing you want in a backup quarterback situation is somebody who, whether it is you're worried about his attitude or just, hey, everybody will beat the story to death and want to talk to him and be at his locker every single day, almost like baiting him to say something that turns into a story. That is the last thing you want from your backup quarterback. And there weren't very many teams that then, after a couple of the other guys had gone, Jackson Dart, Tyler Shuck, like there's not very many other teams that really are in the market for a quarterback. So it does actually make more sense how quickly he fell once he got out of the first round. And I think a lot of people were just slow to realize that, or just not wanting to make it into something more, something bigger than that. But dude, like, okay, I get that in a way he brings some of this on himself. Yes, he is a very confident guy. He and his father are very confident. They are not afraid to speak their mind. That is going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. The Louis luggage clip that circulated after he first got to Colorado. I mean, Shedeur is literally like the Louis luggage that he's talking about, right? That's come in to play quarterback. Like they were throwing that in everybody's face and being pretty brash about it. I understand that. I mean, Shedeur is not shied away from whether it's the wristwatch celebration, the way he talked about, God, there was even the moment where he kind of threw his teammates under the bus a little bit at a press conference. I mean, there are definitely things I can understand why people didn't really like him and were waiting for a moment to pounce. But what did I just talk about in the open for the league, man? What did I just talk about in the open for the league? This is a league that needs all the help it can get in terms of star power, notoriety, guys being taken highly in the draft and performing well. So if you're dancing on Shedeur Sanders' grave for being taken in the fifth round and you're a fan of the Big 12, take a step back, my friends. We need this guy. We need this guy. Shedeur succeeding would be huge. If you got Travis Hunter out there doing big things, you obviously have Patrick Mahomes as the best player in the NFL. And then, you know, Shedeur, look at the media attention around him. If he is good, that will be another Big 12 player that is talked about all the time. All the time. And if you can have those guys becoming absolute stars in the NFL, that helps your league. That helps your league. You know, Patrick Mahomes how often do you see him put on TV at a Texas Tech game? And that turns into a storyline and people are talking about it and like, oh, yeah, man, how cool is that? If it's going to be Shedeur and Travis Hunter coming back to Colorado games and doing that, and they're stars in the NFL, that helps the brand. That helps the brand. You want more high-profile reps from your conference. And the ceiling for Shedeur is very, very high when it comes to star power in the NFL. Whether or not you believe in his skill set, the media attention, the sheer media attention that surrounds him suggests that he has an unbelievably high ceiling in terms of star power. Okay, now I happen to believe also that he is a pretty damn good quarterback. It's a little perplexing to me, and I feel like some of it is reactionary and groupthink and all this stuff that people are dumping on him so much, his ability as a quarterback. Because, guys, I mean, Colorado had basically me playing offensive line for the last 2 years, and he was having to try and make magic out of that. And many times, much more often than not, he did. So I got to give him a lot of respect and credit for dealing with that offensive line situation and being as successful as he was the last couple of years at Colorado. I think that means he certainly has enough talent that someone can mold him into a pretty good NFL quarterback. So that's the best case scenario for the Big 12. Make no mistake. Make no mistake. That is the best case scenario. You should be rooting for that. Put your personal feelings aside. Look, I got annoyed with Colorado last year. I got annoyed with Colorado fans. Not really the team. I got annoyed with Colorado fans because these are the casual fans that come in and want to act like they knew the entire landscape of college football and how these guys would fit in perfectly. Yeah, that got very annoying. So I understand how you're annoyed with that. That wasn't Shedeur, man. Shedeur wasn't running CU Buffs Hunter for number 4 Heisman hashtag on Twitter. Like that, these burner accounts are not being run by Shedeur Sanders. Don't get mad at him for the burners. It's crazy, man. It brought out the worst in everybody, just humanity. I mean, that prank phone call, that's so lame, dude. That is so lame. Now, I did have to, as I was thinking about saying this on the show tonight, I was like, John, you do probably need to be honest about your past a little bit. And I thought, okay, fair enough. When I was a college student, so I think I saw the defensive coordinator of the Falcons kid who got the phone number of Shedeur and led to him being called. Thought I saw he was 22. I was like, well, when I was 18, a freshman at K-State, that was the year that Michael Beasley beat Kansas in Manhattan and snapped the streak. First time that I could tangibly remember that I was old enough to remember watching K-State beat Kansas in Manhattan. The night before, I do remember Brandon Rush's phone number getting circulated there. And I did call Brandon Rush, and I had a conversation with Brandon Rush. Shout out to him. He was very cool. He was very cool. And just kind of shrugged it off. And I was a little dork freshman in college, didn't really know what to say, but I did, in essence, abide by the prank call. I think there was someone at Mizzou too at one point when they had that team with like Flip Pressey or Phil Pressey, whatever, Pressey and Marcus Denman, Kim English, those guys. One of them, the phone number got around too. So I'm not completely abstained from this conversation because I've done something at least somewhat similar. But man, I don't know that I would have called him on like his draft day as he's falling to try and just brought out the worst in all of us. Okay. So just check your attitude a little bit if you're a Big 12 fan. You don't have to go buy a Shedeur Browns jersey. Look, he plays for the Browns. That's probably a toxic situation anyway for both he and Dylan Gabriel. By the way, that's just kind of how it works in Cleveland. But I will be rooting for him, and I think you should be too. Click